Welcome everyone to Through the Void Gate, a Warcaster podcast for new and experienced players. Deploying in 3.
Hello and welcome to Through the Void Gate. We have a very special episode for you today. This is all about the Bokur Brawl, and we have a special guest, Seth Cohen.
Hey
Seth?
everybody, thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Great to have you.
And always with me is Sneaky, of course. So Seth, tell us all about the Brawl.
So the Bokur Brawl is a weekend of high quality tournaments. We do all the privateer press games. And we started the Brawl in 2016. It was an odd time. We had a lot of veterans who were, moving on. We had a lot of new folks coming into the game, and we wanted an event that would kind of bring all of the metas from around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York together. And we loved team events, right? Team events were the thing. There was
Team events are like one of the most fun things you can have in War Machine, definitely.
Absolutely. It's even if you lose every game, right? It's the experience of getting together, looking at those lists, planning, right? Who can take on this? Who can take on that? You'd practice, right? You'd work with your teammates to see if you can get better. So there used to be the Mid-Atlantic Team Tournament. And then there was also the New England Team Tournament, which is still run at Captain Con. And it was and at TempleCon before that. But I've been around long enough. I've been in the game long enough. We used to travel to different stores to play in these events, and they were just great fun. And we wanted to do something like that. So the first Bokur Brawl was actually at a Moose Lodge, where I live, and we packed that thing with 50 some odd people. We ate the lodge out of food. We emptied several of their beer kegs. Everyone had an amazing time, and we said, hey, let's go whole hog on the 5-man team event. Let's turn it into a whole weekend. And we moved it to a much bigger venue, VFW Hall in Manville, New Jersey. And it's the Thomas H. Kavanaugh Hall, VFW Hall in Manville, New Jersey. And we've just been building and building ever since, right? We started with 50 in the first Brawl. Last year, I think we had 150 players at the end of the weekend. And our goal is we want high quality events. And by high quality, it means the player should expect to walk away with swag. We want to give people tons of stuff. We want them to walk away with flags and objectives and themed things for the weekend. And something I'm particularly proud of is the Bokur bounty system. If you play in the events on Friday, and I'll tell you about those events in just a second, every game you play, you have the chance to win something, and win or lose, right? And we tiered the prizes. We have a tier 1, which are like signed posters and real limited edition stuff, all the way down to tier 4, which is like tokens, right? And extra dice and pins and all sorts of cool little swag like that. And after every game, you come and check in your game, and then there are a whole list of achievements, right? So a tier 1 bounty is if you win your game by the 3rd tiebreaker, army points, right? You get to pick one of those very rare things. Or if you win by scoring 5 CPs in 1 turn, right? That's a tier 1 bounty. Or my favorite, your Ogren Bokur assassinates the opposing caster. You do that, that's a tier 1 bounty.
There's a Ogren Bokur thing in every tier, and I love it.
Yes.
Yes. They go from kind of minor in I think it's 4 tiers of it. Is it 4 tiers? Yeah. I forget what it is in the minor one, but it just gets more and more and more crazy, and up to assassinating the caster, and I think that's really fun.
So tier 4 is your Ogre Bokur dies. So if you get him killed, you win a tier 4 bounty, right? If he survives the game, you can claim a tier 3 bounty. If your Bokur kills 2 or more jacks or beasts, that's a tier 2, and then you assassinate the caster, that's a tier 1. But we got a whole list of them, right?
Well, I know that 2019 was just when the last one that fired was. I was so tempted to throw a Bokur in my list just so I could have a chance at this. It's just fun, and it's a model I've never even really looked at, so.
Right.
I love it.
And we try to do that we're the Bokur Brawl, right? So we theme everything around Bokurs. Everything's alliteration. Everything starts with a B if we can help it. And we've got our mascot Bokur Bob, which is a little Bokur character. The painting competition has a separate entry for just Bokers. So yeah, we really try to stick to theme. Theme's important. But I love the Bokur bounty system. So the Friday events, we have a Warfare Weekend qualifier. I think it's the last one before the actual event.
It might be one of the only year.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Which is kind of, I don't know how they're running Warfare Weekend this year because, on top of the limited, qualifiers like that, I know they have the Warcaster Championships, and there's, I don't know what qualifies you for that besides just signing up and being there.
Yeah, I don't think that's an invitation. I think you just sign up and you go. Gonzo's been working really hard to make Warfare Weekend as amazing as possible with all of the limitations. And
he's another guy that puts a lot into all the communities. Like he's actually part of like more than just the privateer press communities. He's out there with a lot of different things too. And
yeah, I'm guessing he doesn't have children. Yeah,
I don't know how he could have a family or anything. He does a lot. He does a lot.
No, it's funny even though I've never been to Warfare Weekend, he and I have had a dozen conversations this year just about organizing and how to do things. And he's a great guy. And if you can go to Warfare Weekend, go to Warfare Weekend. But right now we're talking about the Brawl. Yeah. So we have the qualifier, right? And then every day during the weekend, we have a Monpok event. There's a different event for each day. And we had about, I want to say 13 to 15 people for our Monpok event. Last year, that seems right.
Or are you talking about last year? Or
I'm sorry, 2019. When I say last year, I mean 2019.
Yeah.
And then we have the Bokur Big Based Brawl. There are 4 Bs in that, the Bokur Big Based Brawl. And we give away a huge base model to the top 16 players in a 32-person tournament. So
I love this. This has to be like the highest prize War Machine tournament out there. And it's the fun of it. Like this isn't even like the main event for the weekend. This is what you come to the event for fun for. And I think this might be the best prizing in War Machine.
Well, thank you. We're trying, right? We're trying really hard. It is, I got to be honest, it's really difficult finding 16 huge base models that we can afford that aren't like, oh, we've got 16 models and 14 of them are prime axioms.
Well, right. Prime axioms don't. Yeah, that one's a different issue all entirely. But I mean, you've got some really good ones in there. I think you have a Vulcan in there.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. You might even have. Do you have 2 Vulcans in there? I don't know. All I know is I saw the picture a while ago, and of course there is a prime axiom or 2.
Yes, there are 2.
But I mean, you've also got some highly playable huge bases in there, and it's awesome.
Thanks.
And you know what? Worst case scenario, you don't even have the top. You just have to get the top half of the group, and you come away with a huge base model. And
yeah,
I mean, I don't know any other tournament where you can be like, oh well, I got 15th, and I came away with a $50 to $100 model, depending on how you value War Machine stuff.
Exactly, and that's part of the goal of what we're doing, right? I mean, we go to a lot of cons, we go to a lot of events. There used to be the East Coast Rumble in New Jersey. There's Nova down in Virginia, and certainly Captain Con, Temple Con, and there's nothing worse than spending that kind of money and you play crappy all weekend long and you got nothing to show for it, right? You got nothing. We wanted everyone to walk away feeling like they got their money's worth. And this was one of the ways we did it, right? I think you could go like 2-2 and still come out in that 16.
Yeah, it's something like that. Like, you only end up in the top half. So as soon as you win half your games, you got a shot.
Yeah. So,
and, I mean, honestly, like I say, I played in the 2019 one, and just the opponents of the Brawl are just always class act people. Like, I love it. They're great. Like, I got destroyed by a Harbinger list, and the guy was just so great. It was frustrating, but it was also wonderful. Yes. It was just every part of the event. It attracts like a good quality of people too.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. We're trying, and honestly, we talked about this before. Before we hit the record button, but the War Machine community in general it's more of an exception to find a real tool than it is a rule. And it's one of the things I love about the community, and it's one of the reasons why we do this. I don't do this alone. Steve Rabideau is my hobby husband, and he puts on this event with me. And he's a fantastic player and just a heck of a great guy. And wherever I am weak, he is strong. It's an amazing partnership. So if you ever have a chance to meet Steve Rabideau, and throw him a thank you too. I'm more of a public face, so I tend to get more of it, and I feel bad. He should hear the positive as well.
Well, maybe next year we'll have him on too.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So those are the Friday events, right? We've got the qualifier, we've got the big base brawl. Oh, we also almost forgot we have a Brawl Machine event this year because Brawl Machine is awesome. And
Brawl Machine's actually really taken off, and I'm glad to see you guys supporting it.
Yeah, well, we think it's a great format. We actually created a separate bounty system for Brawl Machine.
Really?
Because it's a little different, right? It's
right.
Not here. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. It's a little different, and we don't want someone to watch the Brawl Machine and say, oh, well, I should have played there and I could have gotten more points and done things differently. So we wanted it to be equitable, right? That's the word I'm looking for. We wanted it to be equitable.
That's cool. Yeah, you don't want people looking over at the other event being like, well, I'm getting punished for playing my event, because I could have played that and just gotten so much more, right?
Yeah.
So I completely see where you're coming from on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the Brawl Machine, for example, the tier 1 bounty is you win by 5 control points. That's one of the little changes there. Tier 2 bounty is kill 5 models with the trample power attack. Whereas I think on the other one, it's a little higher. It's kill 7 models for the regular events.
Please tell me the Bokur bounty stayed in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's the Bokur Brawl, sir.
Okay, I was making sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's still there.
I don't know how many people actually cash in on the Bokur brownies, but just the fact that they're there.
Yeah.
Makes me feel so much better.
It's funny because in 2019, like folks would walk up and I'd say, okay, you report your game. Okay, what are you getting from the bounty table? Oh, I lost. I'm like, come on, you had to have qualified for something. No, I lost. Go get something from tier 4. So this year we added an extra row. I lost my game. So everyone is going to get something every single game. That's the goal. So that's Friday, right? And then also on Friday, we have a Warcaster event. They're all skirmish events. I'll get back to that in a second because I know that's what your focus is. And then Saturday to Sunday for War Machine, it is the 5-person team event. This is our big event. This is what we plan for. We've got the 3D terrain on top of 2D terrain for everything. All the terrains are represented, right? We want to be a premier event. We give everybody, and this goes for Friday as well, but everyone who plays the War Machine event, they're going to walk away with an objective marker, a flag. We've got dice. I'm missing something.
Dice are really nice in 2019 too. I love those dice.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the bottlenecks for supply around manufacturing have affected gaming as well, and we're having a little bit of trouble tracking down someone who's going to have the dice for us on time. But I'm 99% sure we got it covered. But it certainly has been a challenge. But we're getting it all done. People are walking away with good stuff. The team event last year, it was just amazing. Because the way it's structured is we do 3 rounds, 2 rounds, like 3 rounds Saturday, 2 rounds Sunday, because we start early. That leaves everybody all of Saturday night to hang out. And in 2019, the entire brawl ended up at the Hooters that was attached to the hotel we were all staying in. And that party went so late that we had to push off the start of Sunday's rounds until almost 10:30 because everyone was so hungover. Yeah.
I do remember it starting a little later.
Yeah. That evening was so amazing that the hotel doesn't want us back. I had to find a new hotel for us.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That's it was just a great night. And of course the team that won the whole thing, I can't remember the team's name.
Poppers, wasn't it?
It was one of the Canadian teams, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They walked in stone cold sober Sunday morning. I'm like, oh, these guys came here to win. These guys are here to win. Look at that. They were not out with us. And just a great time. We've got medals for everyone. Everyone gets an award, and it's you see amazing play. And something else that we try to do with the Brawl is whether you're playing at if you're playing for last place, if you're playing for the wooden spoon, so to speak, or if you're playing first place, you get the same amount of attention from the judges, right? Every judge call is important. Every table has to, be playable at a top level. I've been to too many events where, you're in the bottom half. We're going to put you on these tables that are halfway warped. Like, I understand I'm not going to win, but I still want to come and play a quality game, right?
Right.
So that's what we're trying to take care of there. And then, Sunday, most of the events happen in the morning. They wrap up in the early afternoon. And then we have to beat feet out of there by late afternoon. So then there's like a rapid fire cleanup, and we get out of there, and we throw all the stuff in my garage, and it takes me 3 months to unpack it all. So,
I think we wrapped up around 1:00 on 2019 or something.
A little later, I think we were done by 2:30.
Yeah, it might have been. I know it wasn't like super late. It was pretty reasonable. But that's a good idea for people to keep in mind if they are going, especially even for the team event. If you're flying in like me, plan accordingly.
Yeah, make sure you plan to fly out, right?
Yeah.
It's also nice about the location is that we're almost equidistant between the Philadelphia airport and Newark. A little closer to Newark, but not by a heck of a lot.
Yeah, so people have flight options there too.
Yeah. So then, of course, we're running our Warcaster events. We're doing one skirmish event each day, and I'll talk about Sunday last because we gotta kind of put an asterisk by that one. But the NJSOBs, that's the game club here in New Jersey. We really like Warcaster. We have a ton of fun playing it. We went in with our Maplewood Hobbies. That's one of our local game stores. We ordered through them for the first wave. We still have not gotten our second wave for reasons beyond our control, but we really love the game. We're like, hey, we got to throw some Warcaster in here. So we got some great swag to give away, some custom dice, and Pulse Tractor ARC tokens, activation tokens, right? That swag we're all going to give away, one of those for each day that you play. And we've got a skirmish event going on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then Sunday
Friday ones is just about full too.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 spots left.
Okay. I haven't checked. I make myself crazy looking at those numbers.
It probably does make you crazy.
Absolutely.
I have like a screen up for like 3 of the major events coming up just because I kind of want to see the Warcaster numbers for different things.
Sure.
And the Friday event for Warcaster has 5 spots left.
Nice.
The Saturday one has 10 spots left. But that one I kind of understand a lot more. A lot of these people are coming in on Friday to play in the team event on Saturday.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have less people show up for the Warcaster event, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And if we have a very low number, for that Saturday and that Sunday event, we might even change the format a little bit, just to accommodate the players we do have, right? Because the problem on Sunday is, again, because we have to get out of the hall, we're very concerned about the timing of Warcaster, right? We're doing skirmish events, 60-minute death clock per player. But it's still so new, right? It's still so new for so many folks. We're worried that's not going to be enough time. We want the event to run on time, but we don't want people to be so rushed they don't feel like they're playing the game. They're fighting the clock,
And for a lot of people, this is going to be their first organized play experience with Warcaster.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how widely other places have been showing up tournaments, like having tournaments be a thing. I know even on the Warcaster Facebook page, I've only seen a couple.
Yeah, me too.
So it's one of those things. Like I think having the 60-minute death clock is a very good part on. Like that's what the Pendulum says, and Pendulum even Pay has said, hey, it's being pretty generous at this point.
Yep.
We know it can be faster, but people don't have the experience yet.
Right.
So I'm glad you guys are sticking with the 60-minute death clock. And I think that I always tell people all the time, you could have a 2-hour death clock. Somebody's going to clock out.
Yeah. You're right.
Like some people are just prone to it happening. I've seen
Yeah.
people run out their entire clock in War Machine on turn 2.
Yes.
I mean, it happens,
Deep into the tank. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, not even hardly move models, right? Like not even start an assassination or do something. Like just, I've seen people clock out on turn 2, just being in that like analysis paralysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'll be honest. I'm more concerned with someone who feels like they were rushed to start or end a game, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't do my sideboard right," or I don't want someone flustered, right? I want them there in the game, present, enjoying themselves. So
you don't want any external factors.
Yeah.
Feeling like they lost the game because of something out of their control.
Right. That's exactly it.
And I'm completely on board with that. So anything to make the player experience better, and I think that seems to be your kind of mantra for the whole event. Is like anything to make the player experience as top notch as it can be.
Yes, that's what we
want people to have fun, Seth.
Say that again?
Said, how dare you want people to have fun?
Yeah,
yes, well,
hardcore. This is Pendulum, dang it.
We are going to use the pendulum rules, right? It seems foolish not to. One of the things that, for lack of a better word, concerns us is we only have 3 missions, right? That's all we got there in our skirmish generator.
Well, the interesting thing about Pendulum is that the Pendulum packet basically says that whatever the TO decides they want to do, the TO can decide they want to do.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how it's become. Your event is a all skirmish event.
Yep.
Right. That's a TO's choice, and it's perfectly fine. And it's even though there's not a format in there for just running all skirmish, it's covered by the packet because there is a little blurb that says do whatever the TO says.
Right.
So, honestly,
I show my wife that packet all the time. It doesn't help. She doesn't listen to me.
The pendulum
mission I would avoid for skirmish in a tournament format is the teleporty one, whose name I cannot remember.
But you got a third chance to get it right.
They're fair game.
But yeah, that one is the only one I would hyper avoid. The reason they've chosen the scenarios they have for the skirmish format is because you'll notice they're all end of activation scoring.
Yeah.
And the reason, like, there's a pretty big rift in the community about, if end of pulse round scoring is bad for the game.
Well, it's one of the biggest challenges, right? I mean, but it's part of, I think it's what tactically makes it so interesting, right?
Well, the problem with end of pulse round scoring is that the second player advantage is just so huge.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because not only do you get to contest objectives, you get to kill people off of objectives. And like, I know I've had a good number of games where I'll be scoring at the end of my turn as player 1, 3 or 4 of the objectives. And then second player has their turn and I scored nothing. And it's a pretty big feels bad.
Yeah.
So they have, that's why those scenarios are the ones that are in the Pendulum packet.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, we've run the TTS League with the other missions from the first Kickstarter, which would include there's 2 other end of activation ones. There's Chaos Theory and those.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Actually, those are playable, but you just have to understand there is a pretty big second player advantage.
Yeah.
And unconventional warfare is the one that I would 100% stay away from.
Got it. Unconventional warfare. Well, I mean, look, fellas, I'll tell you the truth. We really like the game. We played at the club. We haven't run an organized Warcaster event. So part of my goal here is to kind of thrash out a lot of this stuff with you guys and figure out the best way to do it. But we're going to make our share of mistakes over Bokur Brawl weekend, right? We're going to have some folks who say, "Wow, it would have been better if you had done X," and we can't know these things until we do it. So as much as we are focused on the player experience and players having a positive experience, it's entirely possible that someone plays through Friday and was like, "Wow, that I didn't enjoy that," and then I'm going to want to know why. So what I can do to help make it a little bit better for that person.
And I think the after action reports coming from this are going to be a huge thing for just other cons and everybody else to learn from, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody's run a big scale Warcaster event at a con yet.
Right.
This is kind of the first. You're the Mayflower here, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Happy to do it.
So speaking of some of those feels bad experiences, what are some of the Bokur Brawl's rulings on objectives and how they're treated when they're terrain, which is a majority of skirmish scenarios?
Right. So I'm not sure I quite understand all the nuances of the objective issue. Can you kind of, because we haven't had big fights about it at the game club. Like it hasn't really come up as something that, this concerns us. Walk me through it.
What I think is each meta has kind of agreed to how they play objectives when they're treated as terrain.
Okay.
And so when you're in a meta and you play a certain way all the time, you probably don't notice that there could be a misunderstanding here.
Fair.
But basically, objectives as terrain are not really defined as much more beyond that. Just that they give cover and that they're terrain. So I've seen players that feel like that guideline for what they're treated as allows you to stand on them. When you stand on them, you technically get 360-degree cover, because if any line from my base to any part of your base, which would include what goes on top of that objective, would give you cover.
Yeah.
The way we've been playing it in the tabletop simulator leagues is that objectives are essentially obstacles, which means they're 1-inch tall pieces of terrain that you can freely move over, but they do provide cover. They're essentially a low wall, but a very cylindrical, weird-shaped low wall.
So you guys haven't been using a specific piece of terrain and saying this terrain is we take we have a lot of Infinity stuff laying around the store that they let us use for terrain on the table, and frequently we'll take like the cube size crate, like the smaller little crate, and say, okay, here are the 3 crates, and we're going to put a 1, 2, and 3 on them, and those are objectives here, and top and bottom that's 4 and 5, and and then that is the objective, the crate. Have we been doing that wrong this whole time?
I mean, hey, as long as you guys are having fun with it, it's technically not wrong. But
thank goodness.
The objectives are supposed to be a 20 millimeter circle. So like all of the tokens, all of the objectives that PP has created, they're all a 20 millimeter circle. Mm-hmm. And that's just how the scoring zone is defined. If you make it bigger or smaller, that 1-inch zone is going to change. So yeah, but like Justin said, if y'all are having fun and it works, then do whatever you do. But technically, it's supposed to be a 20 millimeter circle.
Right.
So not to throw this back at you, but let's say I said, hey, guess what? I'm flying you in and putting you up in my house for the weekend. You're running Warcaster. That's not happening, by the way. What would you do for that weekend for the objectives? What would you say is the best way in our first official big Warcaster event to make this happen? What would you do?
Well, Sneaky, you just tell them. I would run it just like we do in the TTS leagues.
So the way, for anyone who doesn't know, that runs all of the TTS leagues, and we're going to be starting our 7th league, I think.
Wow, good for you, man.
As a slow league too, so that's gonna be cool.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that at the end of the episode, but yeah. So the way I run it is like Justin said, is that all of the objectives they count as obstacles, so you can move over them. They provide cover, but you can't stand on them. Now, the official ruling is you play it how you want to play it. That is the official ruling from Mr. Souls himself.
Okay.
So, but like if I was, coming over, like you said, if you invited me over and stuff, I would just use either. It kind of just depends on what you have. Like everybody has the tokens. You should buy a starter set. Everybody has the token. You can always just use tokens and then put something on top of the tokens, which is perfectly fine. Or if you've spent some money or 3D printed some objective markers, then those are always good too. I know Justin has bags and bags of.
Yeah, I do have a lot of 3D printed objective markers.
Nice.
He has designed. Yeah.
All right.
And the PP ones are actually great models. They're a little expensive, but they're awesome.
My only beef with some of those is that they're once they become over an inch tall, they actually get classified as structures at that point, which is functionally the same as an obstacle, but you can't move over it
That's
because
true.
you need a ladder or something to move over it. Because
Oh,
once they
yeah.
because some of those are like 2 inches tall, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all roughly
Like
just tall.
like if they were close to an inch, I would be like, okay, whatever, I get this. But
Yeah.
like there's a certain point with them where you have to move around. It doesn't make sense though.
Yeah, the Empyrean Cache one that comes with the tournament kits, that one's roughly an inch tall. But all of the ones that were available in the Kickstarter, the tower-looking ones, they're about 2 inches tall. Yeah.
So, and you know what? Some of the privateer ruling was like, hey, just if you're using physical objective markers, just do whatever those are. You know, like
Yeah. Well, we're going to come up with something. I'm going to take this back to Steve and the guys at the club, and say, hey, what do we think is going to work? It's a nice thing about when you're connected to other players locally. We can always say, hey, we're thinking about this, and we get a whole bunch of opinions, and then obviously we'll lead with that for the weekend to explain to folks how it's gonna work.
right. And that's where like that opening TO speech is so important to just any game and making sure that it runs smooth. So
Mhm.
any I know Warcast really hasn't had any facts or erratas or anything, but those are clarified early on, and just knowing rulings before they need to become a ruling in somebody's game, like at the
Yes.
critical moment,
Yep.
is such a big part.
Well, it's funny. I get asked a lot about the process of judging, and when I originally started volunteering my time as a judge, I was obsessed with the idea of being right. And you do want to be right. You want to get the right call every time. But sometimes, especially in tight time situations, and I don't mean like round timer. I mean like players have a couple seconds left on the clock, or whatever it is, or tempers are high. Sometimes you just need to keep the game moving. You need to come up with something consistent that makes sense, right? And then because so many little corner case things will come up. So you try to front load as much as possible, so you don't find yourself making a specialized ruling later. But there's that sweet spot in there where you get that done, because sometimes the ruling, like sometimes there's some obscure ruling and it's been on the forums, it's been ruled by an infernal and no one knows about it, and then explain it to them and everyone's ticked off, right? Because like, that doesn't make any sense, that's a terrible rule. Hey, look, man, that's the infernal ruling. Sometimes you just you say, okay, it's going to take me 20 minutes to look this up, here's the decision we're making, we're moving forward, right? We're going to stop arguing, we're going to move forward on this. But and that's sort of in so if I get that objective stuff out there, hopefully that we avoid those situations later in the game.
Yeah, having proper expectations set is so important. Like
Yes.
not just in this setting, just in any setting in general. But that's like one of the main things that we've talked about in this podcast a lot with a lot of the play it how you want to play it rulings. Is we don't care what the ruling is on some of the things that we want ruled on. We just want to have an expectation set. Like even if ruling we don't like, I just want a ruling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, especially before events like this, where like it's not such a big deal when your meta is having a tournament with your meta, right?
Right.
But when you have so many people coming from outside metas and coming together, and hey, my meta plays objectives this way, my meta plays objectives this way. Hey, I can do this in my meta. Hey, we've never heard of that rule. It's good to have things that are like, hey, this is how we're doing it very early on.
Yeah, and then the other key is if there might be other things out there that the three of us don't even know about that are issues, right? Till someone comes up and makes it one.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the things we do is the judge team, anytime someone makes a decision, regardless of the game system where we make the decision, we quickly get together, share what that decision was, so everyone can be consistent moving forward, right? It's we constantly have these little discussions all throughout the day and the night to make sure we're all doing it right. And then sometimes it's, hey, I just ruled this. Quick, go back and fix it because you're wrong, right? Sometimes that happens too. But I'm fully expecting some things to come up that we just can't anticipate.
Right.
And
There's going to be a few things. And me talking about the way people play. Sometimes people play just just not according to the rules in their
Right.
metas. I know
Right.
I've talked to people that I've met on TTS because we on TTS we try and get a lot of people in and try and teach people the game and try and do a lot of things. And they'll come in with a couple real life games experience. And I know one player in particular, models were blocking line of sight for his other models. There was another, which does not in Warcaster.
No, it doesn't happen in Warcaster.
There was another player that if you were an attacker rolling against the defender and you tied, you still got to roll a damage roll. That doesn't work in Warcaster.
No, well, unless you have a blast weapon, right? I mean,
Right. Then
yeah.
you just get your blast roll.
Right.
And then just the other day, I was playing with somebody and they tried to slam me over one of my other models. And I was like, no. As soon as I hit that model, I stop. So there's a lot of different things that people have thought were normal and good.
Yeah.
And they're just, they're going to be they're going to have those feel bads that are a little bit unavoidable when they go to try and do one of these things they've always done in the game and they can't.
Right. Oh, especially if it's a part of like a little, 3-step chain. Like I do this, and then I do this, and,
Right.
and then I usually win. Oh, wait a second. Now my whole plan's screwed up.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know why you summoned that model behind that other model. I'm just gonna velocity projector him over it. It's like, oh, actually,
No, you're not going to do that.
it doesn't work like that, buddy.
Yeah.
Probably
yeah.
the base Warcaster rules are tight enough, and there's not enough nitty gritty rules interactions other than like a couple here and there that it's usually not really a big deal to make a ruling. Like
Yeah.
in all the leagues I've run, I've maybe had to make like 2 rulings the whole time. Like
Sure.
other than just people basically just asking me like, hey, how does this rule work?
Right.
That happens a lot.
No,
But,
that
like,
makes sense. I mean, Privateer does a great job writing rules. The problem when you're judging War Machine is the sheer volume of them, right? That it's easy to get them confused. I think the rule set for Warcaster is tight. It's one of the things that definitely attracted us to the game. We know that they know how to write good rules. But I'm just talking about how, generally speaking, we're gonna be handling those issues as they come up. But I don't think it's going to be every round we've got 6 or 7 judge calls to make. I'm not worried about that.
I think one of the only other like general game rules that I'm generally worried about how it's ruled is overhang on terrain pieces.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to explain what you mean by overhang to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Okay. So one big difference in Warcaster and War Machine is that Warcaster uses a lot of 3D terrain and structures, which is anything you can stand on that's taller than 1 inch. Basically, is the way that works. And there have been some mixed up rulings on what actually happens when your model's base touches or goes over the edge of a piece of terrain like that at all. There was a ruling somewhere where, hey, essentially the edge of that building is a tripwire. If I slam you and you touch it, you fall off. That's as soon as you touch it, you're off.
That doesn't feel right to me.
It doesn't feel right to me either. There's the way the rule book reads it. It's as long as your base sits, and you can pretty much as long as it sits, it fits, right? So as long as you know.
Now my only issue with that kind of view is, and not that I see people doing this, but certainly there's some shenaniganizing there, right? There's room for shenaniganizing if on the way you stack a base one way or another.
Right.
But it would seem to me that if half of that base is sitting on the building, then that base is sitting on the building.
Right.
You want to play the model in the game, not play the terrain, right? You play the game, not the rules. Does that make sense the way I just said that?
Right. Well,
Yes.
the wholly on ruling is also kind of rough because some objectives, if you ever put them on a piece of terrain, like it makes it to where you almost can't interact with it in a lot of ways, especially for the larger base models.
Gotcha.
So I know it's sneaky in the TTS leagues. I think you call it the 51% rule.
I mean, I call it the 5149 or something because technically, if you're exactly 50-50, then it's like, okay, well, which one is it? And I was just like, you know what? As long as 51% of your base is on, then you're good.
Hey, coincidence. That was my idea too. I'm just kidding. I'm stealing that idea. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. It does become a little hokey with because like by my base sitting off like around the edge of a corner, like where are we picking out 50% is? But because I have had somebody get frustrated with me when I had a scythe just sitting on a very small building.
Yeah.
The half the base is like hanging over, but it's like not all in one spot, so it's hard to tell where the 50% was.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what judges are for at that point, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you can't cover every situation. You're just
Right.
going to have to at some point make a call.
Yeah.
Right.
Mostly what it comes down to is like, is it feasible for this model to be here without like basing for advantage, right? If it's feasible, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's basically the underlying concept, because like without overhang, the game just gets really nitpicky and nitty gritty in a couple different situations, and it also
Yeah.
makes vehicles just very, very difficult to use if you're using any 3D terrain at all, which you should be because it makes the game better.
Yes.
I think the 5149 was almost necessary once vehicles became a part of the game.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because otherwise vehicles can barely interact with a lot of elevation.
Well, that's part of the fun of the game, right? Interacting with that 3D, the terrain on the board. And if you create rules that make you shy or uncomfortable interacting with terrain on the board, well, then we're not getting a dynamic great game anymore.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
I
All
do
right.
think that you're going to get a lot of judge calls on, hey, is this thing in range? Because I don't know how to measure this diagonal through a building.
Yeah. Well,
or can I see this model? Because volume measurement, it's super easy in War Machine, where we're all on the same plane.
right.
But the second you start throwing like, hey, I'm on this building has a wall around it, and that small base model's there. Can I see it because I'm actually like 2.75 inches tall as this warjack? It's like,
Yeah, and that's
it gets
the
a
point
little
where
crazy.
you bend down, you try to do it from the model point of view, at some point you just make a decision, you got to move on,
Right. Right.
and you got to keep the
I
game
foresee
moving.
those two things being a majority of your judge calls
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
on the weekend.
I'm all right with that.
Some of Infinity type volume markers might be a good thing to pick up if that's something y'all are interested in. Or you just plop both the markers down in front of the other two models and put a ruler on top.
That's a good idea.
What I've actually done is I've 3D printed like those Oklahoma widgets or whatever they're called. Where they're like an inch, 5 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, or whatever it is.
And they're shaped like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma widget.
But on mine, I actually have like there's like a little indentation for all the sizes.
Oh.
I know I'm gonna be bringing a bunch of that kind of stuff out just to further give people stuff when I'm at the
Well,
ball.
that would be amazing. You are certainly welcome to do so. As a matter of fact, if you're willing to share any of those files, I actually just bought a 3D printer for the house. We're having a heck of a time getting it to work right, but soon it will, and I can print out some stuff.
Yeah, I've got a lot of printed right now, so yeah, I'll be bringing some stuff. So
outstanding.
I definitely also want to add to what the Bokur Brawl is trying to do.
I appreciate that. Other things that I'm not concerned about, but I know, we'll always get especially right before the event, we'll always get emails. Hey, I want to bring X model. Does this work as a conversion, right? And the conversion rules are really clear from Privateer, thank goodness. If I can't immediately recognize it, or if I see a lot of bits on it or parts on it that I don't recognize, it's pretty easy to make the call. But what I normally tell folks is that looks fine to me, but bring a backup model in case seeing it in person changes my mind, right? Because there's only so much I can get from a photo.
I'm pretty sure I might be the very first person that emailed you about conversions as soon as as Bokur launched. Because my AC, everybody got a rat head and a rat tail. Everybody got one.
Okay.
They're essentially Skaven in the Warcaster universe.
Okay.
So I have a lot of conversions, and I haven't even sent you a picture of what my sides look like. Because my sides are drills. because I think that like fits a lot more with the scything run narrative, like where they're running over people.
Okay, I gotcha.
And I love my conversions, but I understand how like as a con, they might not be acceptable.
Well, I appreciate that understanding. I mean, like I said, I'll take a look. If I look at the picture, I know exactly what it is, and it just looks like you themed it out. I don't see there being a problem. We have very rarely said no to a conversion. The biggest problem that I have when people try to create proxies, they don't quite get the difference between a conversion and a proxy. Someone who took a unit of riflemen and then modeled longer guns on them and said that they're, or no, it's a reverse. Took a unit of infantry, modeled longer gun barrels on them and said that they're riflemen. Well, that's a proxy. You created a proxy. You haven't created a conversion. That's usually my bigger issue. But themed things are great. Just the goal is that when your opponent looks at it across the table, they don't have to do extra calculations in their head as to what models are. That's the goal.
Right.
Yeah, I think the biggest contentious things on that particular thing in the community is the Cortex ruling for Warjacks, because a lot of people don't want to magnetize their Cortex heads. And,
it is very, very difficult having done it. Ick.
Yeah. And the official ruling is that the Cortex, unlike the weapons, because you can convert the weapons, but the Cortex is what you see is what you get. So that's definitely something y'all are gonna have to make clear to the players, how y'all are, if y'all are playing what you see is what you get for the Cortexes or not, because a lot of people just said, I'm gonna put what.
And with the conversions I've done, even for my ISA who are not, a crazy conversion, I personally do not. I know this is gonna sound really weird for me playing War Machine and stuff. I am not super huge on the aesthetic of a lot of the Warjacks and their heads like being in the middle of their chest.
Yeah.
It drives me insane a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But so like on my Iron Star Alliance, instead of having a head, they've actually got like a visor. So that, like a lot of my Warjacks don't even have like correct heads at all. I know all
yay.
ones actually have rat ogre heads.
Is there a way for the opponent to know what Cortex is on that jack?
Well, I was going to just bring a token that just said, so for my rat ogre ones, they were just gonna have a token with them. That way, it's very clear. What I intend to have is my Cortex, and then there's no confusion throughout the game.
So here's my
like
gut
I say,
reaction.
that's up for you for a ruling.
Yeah,
and that's something maybe you want to talk to Rabdo about. But
yeah, so I'll give you my gut reaction, and then I'll have to talk to the hobby husband and see if he agrees. So my feeling is that if you can mark out with a token and like a really clear token what the Cortex is, and it has to be, you can't stick it behind it has to be either on the base or in front. Like the opponent has to be able to see it. And if folks are willing to play like that, I'm okay with that. But that decision is only half mine. So let me talk to Mr. Rabideau, and then we will also send that out ahead of time so folks know what to expect. That's not going to be a game day reveal. We're going to send that out ahead of time.
So stuff like that. Are you guys coming up with your own player packet?
We are putting on the website under each event some specifics. I have to update the website, I know, but we've been kind of waiting. And then also running a school district during COVID is just, you can't imagine the amount of time it takes up. In the past, we have come out with player packets that are pages and pages and pages, and the feedback we have received is nobody's reading it, Seth, stop writing it. So I'm going to just put the high points on the website, and like I'm going to put some downloadable forms and things like, the player sheets and things like that, and the times that each event are planned to happen. And that's how we're going to handle the packet situation moving forward.
More like a FAQ and a schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's probably the optimal way to do it.
Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating when you put hours and hours into something and no one reads it. And, I'll get someone messaged me the other day. They're like, "Oh, what's the code for the hotel? I'm trying to book my room." I'm like, there's a website, dude, and I put it on the website, and it's part of a Facebook post from the Facebook page, and no one's going to that. They can just call me. So they call me, and I'm trying to balance out the whole life work thing. The event is going to be top tier and great, but I'm not going to spend 14 hours on something that no one's reading.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like I say, I would, if I were running an event, I'd keep it down to what I feel the most important things are, and then, hey, if anybody has anything else they feel is important enough to put on here, message you about it, update it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my TTS player packet's like 6 pages long, but then
And I still haven't read half that.
yeah, but then I went through like for that specific reason, I went through and highlighted all the TO rulings in red. So like all someone has to do is scroll through, look for the red stuff, and then
There it is.
everything else is gravy.
Yeah.
So one other, just kind of Bokur ruling kind of thing. Say a player rolls the wrong number of dice for something. How are you handling that at the Bokur?
So like they didn't roll enough dice, or they rolled too many dice, or both?
Normally not rolling enough dice. Most people will agree that, hey, just roll the extra dice, right?
Yeah, that's
But
the right move.
rolling either the wrong number of dice, like too many dice, or maybe they put too many red dice. Like they had they had 6 dice in their hand, but they ended up with like 3 reds instead of 2 reds.
Yeah, and that's always difficult, right? Because it's a mistake we've all made. It's something we don't have to worry about in War Machine. We just roll our number of dice. But playing Warcaster, we got our power dice, we got our regular dice, So you didn't roll enough dice. Just pick up the dice you're supposed to roll and keep rolling, right? And that's fine. But if you rolled too many whites, or you didn't include your reds, you can't just pull a random 2 white out of the pile, or vice versa, or any combination thereof. You have to roll the right number of dice. You got to pick them all up, get the right number of dice, correct versions of dice in your hand, and re-roll it. And sometimes that's going to work out much worse for you, and sometimes it's going to work out much better. But that's why we use dice. Otherwise, we'd be playing chess, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Okay. So I think we've covered most of the things. What kind of terrain are you using for the event?
So Steve is making a lot of terrain. He loves making terrain, so he's making some custom stuff.
I'm excited to see that.
What's that?
I said I'm excited to see that. I've seen a lot
of
like I've seen a lot of the different sets. Like I've seen Tinker Turf. I've seen there's a Muson mini set. The Stormpost Alpha is what I personally have.
Mm-hmm.
I always like seeing the different crazy things people make up for Warcaster terrain, because it's one of my favorite things about Warcaster is that you can pretty much choose any setting you want, because there's 1,000 worlds and they could be further forward or behind in technology or whatever, so you could do literally anything.
Yep.
So I'm very excited to see what he's making, if he's like handcrafting terrain for this. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we do have a lot of infinity terrain. We like using the infinity terrain. Maplewood Hobby is lending us a couple of sets of terrain. And that's also part of our grand experiment this year, right? Did players want to see more little mini forests or rocky outcroppings, or tables of all steam pipe fittings and things of, like, you know what I mean? Like we're it's one of the things we're just kind of taking a chance on. We want there to be terrain on the table to make table side choice valuable, right? And where you place your models, and we want all that to be valuable. So we're going to have a lot of terrain on the board, but all the nuanced stuff. Do we have too much of one type, not enough of another? We got to wait for the feedback, because we just don't know. We can't plan for it all.
Right. And I've written a lot of Warcaster articles, and so many of those articles come down to, hey, what's your terrain look like? Because terrain mitigates it determines so much about the game.
Yeah.
It's so critical in Warcaster.
I think Infinity kind of has the same issue, from what I understand, is where like a well-made board really makes the game. Like if you play on a board that is not well made, the game suffers for it.
Yeah.
So
I like the articles you've written. I've read some of them. I think you write rather well, quite honestly.
Oh, thank you.
Keep doing that, because that's good.
I've got an AC post KS3 one coming up. I just got to put pictures and format it, and kind of goes a little bit deep dive into what you want, how you're going to build up your force, and where you want to go from there.
Excellent. I look forward to reading it.
And then you mentioned there's swag for the events.
Yeah,
What are we talking about here?
So we designed our own activation tokens, pulse tracker, arc tokens, dice. The dice I know I put up photos of. I put up a wide shot of the other stuff, and everyone's getting dice every event that they play in. And then we're going to choose. So like on Friday, you might get the activation tokens. On Saturday, you get the pulse trackers. On Sunday, you get the arc tokens. We haven't figured out the specifics of that yet, but we want to get this stuff out to people. There's no value to us to just keep holding on to them.
Right.
But at the same time, I always didn't like when you're at an event on a Sunday and then like, oh, wait, you were able to stick around to the last event. You get all this extra stuff. It didn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me. The person who stayed till 4 paid the same price as the person who had to leave at 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Right.
we're going to find a way to get it all out.
Yeah.
Just don't know the specifics of it yet. And then they're laser cut from acrylic plastic. So they'll feel good.
Yeah,
They'll
they
look
look
good.
really nice.
Yeah.
And what I really like about acrylic is like for your pulse tracker, you can write on those with like dry erase markers.
Yep.
And then I love anything you write on with dry erase marker. That's
Yeah, I prefer wet erase markers actually, because dry erase I always rub it off with my thumb, but a wet erase that's going to stick around for a while.
Oh, see, that's fair. I like the dry erase because like I bring like a whole like 20 tokens that are just like dry erase marker stuff, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I can go from game to game to game to game system to game system to game system, wipe it off. I'm ready for the next game, like whatever I need it
Yeah.
to be.
That's smart.
Sneaky, is there anything you really feel like we need to? Oh, what should players bring for the event?
Okay, so this year, you have to be vaccinated to play in the event. That's the world we live in now. That's the, New Jersey, although we are 70% vaccinated if you don't count, children under the age of 14. Things get stricter rather than looser around here. And with the Delta variant hitting, right, we didn't think we'd be able to run the event without people being vaccinated. So we're asking folks to bring a vaccination card or photos of the front and back of their vaccination card. Or if you're coming from Canada, hopefully the border is fully open. I know that they have a specific app that they're using, and we just need to see it. And we're going to check off that we got it from you. I don't want a copy of it. I don't want you to send me a photo of it because I don't want to create a medical record. I just want to know that you did it. And then once you're checked off, you're done. You're great. If you really feel like you want to wear a mask, bring a mask, right? We're not going to look down on anyone who wants to, feel like they get themselves some extra protection. What we do have at the Brawl, moving away from COVID talk, we set up water jugs so people can fill water jugs and drink from water throughout the event. We serve lunch every day. Friday, I believe, are hoagies, and then Saturday we do like a hot dog bar, and Sunday it's pizza. So we make sure your lunch is taken care of. You want to bring cash with you for the bar. It's a VFW bar, so it's super cheap, and the bar opens on the early side. Last year we drank them out of liquor, so hopefully they've stocked up since then. And you want to bring money to get yourself dinner. Obviously, we have an arrangement with one of the local restaurants. If you put in your order by 4 o'clock on Friday or Saturday, they will have it delivered to the hall by 6 o'clock. And we'll go over all that with the players the day of. Everything you need to play, you got to bring everything you need, but we like to have stuff there so folks feel comfortable hanging out in the hall all day. So, we'll have mints up at the front of the room if you need a mint. Oh, for God's sakes, if you need a mint, please take a mint. Oh my gosh. I put in the bathroom some extra deodorant for, the same reason. Dear God, please use that stuff if you need to. We also set up, we don't have enough, but we set up shelving. We set up plastic shelving all around so people have a place to put their bags. So, we like there to be space for people to play. It's one of the things that's important to us. It's part of the quality of the event. So if you can't use that shelving that we have out for you, if it fills up super quick, we encourage people, hey, just bring out the tray. We have trays, army trays we can lend you for the day. And then, put it on your tray and put your bag back in the car. So I can't think of much else.
Yeah. Now I know Pendulum requires you to bring your cards for all your models.
Yep.
I don't. Now this might be another Bokur ruling to think about. There is like a packet online that's floating around that has like all the rules for all the factions in it, and it's about 90% perfect. There are like it's the hero vehicles that seem like he kind of did not proofread too well.
Okay.
But most of the other rules are right. Is the Bokur Brawl going to be accepting it? Like, I don't know how much it's actually going to come up that anybody cares that somebody's not bringing their rules with, like, their, they didn't bring the Scourge card with them. But
well, I got to be honest. I'd prefer if you did. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, 90% right. Do I want to be responsible for the 10% or hang my Warcaster event or out to dry on a ruling that's on a 10% mistake on a document? I'd rather you bring your cards. If someone has a specific issue, like we've had folks who come to the brawl and then their luggage didn't make it with them, right? So they had to scrape some things together. Okay, we deal with that, right? Or one year someone's beautiful model broke in the car. And we ended up just grabbing a huge base and just putting a big, huge sign on it that said, this is a blockader, right? What was that guy going to do? Drove 4 hours, his model broke in the trunk, right? So we deal with all those situations, but I'm feeling like you really should bring the cards.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Just wiki isn't 100% correct. So
the wiki has been. I'm still sad about the regulators losing Map 5 that they never had.
They gave you hope.
They gave me hope. Those models need something, and I thought Map 5 still I don't think was enough for the 3, but it was definitely a big boost, right? So just something out to players. Just make sure you bring stuff to mark things. Bring stuff to like your activation tokens. If you're one of these people that don't like to have your cards for a spell effect sitting next to the model, bring a token to mark it with.
Right.
I highly suggest people sleeve their cards, but I guess that's not mandatory.
Yeah, certainly not.
Just bring things so that you can mark everything in the game and make things as clear and easy as possible for other people.
Well, that's the key, right? Your goal isn't, you're not sleeving the card because it's pretty. You're sleeving the card because it's going to help with readability. You want the opponent to not have to, have questions. Everything should be there evident on the table. And that's the goal behind why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay. And now, I think we've covered most of the stuff about the event itself. Either of you got anything else for the event itself?
No, I think that's it. I mean, we've talked a lot about the event, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, well, I want people to come in feeling confident, knowing what they're coming into. And people should keep an eye online at the Bokur Brawl website for whenever the player packet shows up.
Very soon. Just let me get through Yom Kippur next week, and then I should be able to get it all done.
So on that note, I know you said that your meta plays Warcaster. So you play?
I do. I'm a Marcher World guy. I've always been attracted to fluff first, right? Rules second. When I started playing War Machine all those many years ago as mercenaries, just because none of the other factions appealed to me, right? So I love the Marcher World theme. I like the rebels, we don't want to be part of your stinking club kind of thing. They look gritty. They look like they kind of just threw all their crap together and ran out to jump on a spaceship to go help out on some planet somewhere. I like that look. I'm terrible at the game. I'm frighteningly terrible at the game. And I know you'd asked me if I could kind of quantify that, and I've been thinking really hard, and I actually played some games on Sunday. I have a lot of trouble thinking 3 turns ahead, and I feel like that's what you have to do.
Oh, I really wish we'd have recorded that game, Sneaky.
Yeah.
There was a game we recently had with one of our newer players on TTS, and I actually do stream a lot of games on TTS. And that was a game where he was trying to learn some things, and he was playing it Sneaky, and I was kind of assisting him a lot of the time, being like,
Sure.
Well, why are you doing this activation? What are you hoping to achieve from it? And I was like, it would get to like turn 3 and he started activating something, and I was like, well, why are you activating that? You're not going to score anything else this turn. What you need to do is start setting up assets so you can score something else next turn.
Right.
And
That's
like
where I
that,
stumble.
like he had a siege breaker that he had summoned that was more than 5 inches away from any objective, right?
Yeah.
So that siege breaker was not going to be part of the game, but he had a free turn. I was like, that siege breaker may not kill anything this turn, but next turn when you move that siege breaker now, you can make it a threat for scoring later on or contesting even.
Right.
Sometimes I think trying to find I just put out an article about void gates, and I think sometimes planning like what's coming out of your void gates and what you want them to do later on is one of the most vital skills in the game. Because I've seen a lot of players, they'll summon something and they'll summon it in a terrible place just to keep it safe. But they've kept it so safe that I'm also safe from it interacting with the objectives.
I am so guilty of that. I am so guilty of that. I do that all the time, and I'm trying to get myself to stop. I feel like sometimes I overfocus on one or two model types. Like, I love the blast weapons. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just enjoy playing them. So it's like, oh, I got to get that blast weapon out there and start blasting things with my blast weapon. And then I realize, wow, I could have just, use that a turn from now and been in a much better place instead of focusing on, I need to use this unit now because I love it. Right.
Definitely prioritizing different things in Warcaster, I think, is probably one of the biggest player skills.
Yeah. For the record, that siege breaker actually won.
It was a really intense game, and there was a lot of it was one of those games that was perfect for just showing how 3D chess the game could be. Because every time he was trying to do something, I was like, well, why are you doing it? What's this going to do next turn or the turn after? And I was like, well, if you put it there, this thing can't interact with anything. It was one of those things where he got asked a lot of questions and he came up with a lot of answers, and it ended up being it became the last turn of the game, and there were 3 decision trees he could choose, and all could potentially win him the game, but they were all dicey.
Right. Right.
It was great.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the next step for me, right? Before I activate anything, just ask myself the question: why am I activating this now? Is it going to help me score a point or contest a point by the end of turn 3? Right? Maybe that's what I need to do in my next game to kind of help me start prioritizing.
One other thing to think about is prioritizing which objectives you go for first, because maybe you can score these 2 super easy, right?
Yeah.
But my opponent isn't going, there's no way in hell I'm scoring that one over there. He summoned 5 units from his army on it. There's no way,
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's got 2 things threatening this one.
Mm-hmm.
I could score that one anytime. Maybe I just double down on keeping.
Yeah.
Making those decision trees on what you can afford to wait until later on in the turn, and what you need to focus on protecting are some of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Someone had asked basically what about what you were just talking about, Seth? Your decision tree and decisions you make. And I literally wrote out just a huge list of all the questions that go through my head every single turn. And it wound up being 20 some odd questions.
Wow. That's a little overwhelming, I'll be honest. I don't know if I want to ask myself 20 questions each turn.
But I don't actively ask myself them, because once you get experience, you just you just go through it, right?
Yeah.
It's there's just a lot of little things, because you got to be focusing on what you're doing this turn, how it's going to impact your next turn, what your opponent's going to do next turn, and then the stuff from your void gate isn't going to pop up until the next turn. So you've got to be thinking 3 turns ahead.
I know.
And so it's a lot.
Sneaky, let me ask you a question then. And I'm keeping a watch on the time there. It's starting to get in late for me because I got something else in a little bit. So what would be I don't want to say perfect, but if you say to yourself, wow, that was a successful first turn, what did you accomplish in your first turn from deployment to the end of that turn?
And I think he's talking specifically Kickstarter 2, because we haven't gotten to Kickstarter 3 stuff, and Bokur Brawl is going to be Kickstarter 2.
Yep.
Right. That really depends on faction.
All right, so Marcher World, because I don't know, that's what I play.
So I'll kind of break it down into. I'll answer the Marcher World question, but then I'll break it down to you've got your Gatecrasher factions and you've got your non-Gatecrasher factions.
Okay.
And that's really where it's going to differentiate.
Uh-huh.
So for Marcher Worlds, I mean, pretty much you're pretty much almost always going to start for talking skirmish.
Yeah.
Size is an entire separate discussion.
Game.
You're pretty much always going to start Engineer Strike Raptor, and your goal is to get the Strike Raptor in your opponent's face if you have Arcane Synthesis and can get 3 arc on it.
Uh-huh.
And if not, position it somewhere safe that can then get in their face next turn.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's
Like if
big-
you've got a big building in the center of the board, and even if you don't have Arcane Synthesis, if you tune him up, send him right behind that building.
Yep.
The thing about the Strike Raptor is that he has so much speed and so much power with like all of his different weapons. He threatens just about every objective on the board just from like 3 inches off the center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he's terrifying. The Strike Raptor is constantly the bane of my existence.
Strike Raptor is very gross. For AC, what you want to try to do is there's that, but for AC has the most reliable first turn shenanigans, right? From
Yep.
Kickstarter 2 with the Immortal Weaver. So your goal is going to be to get your Immortal Weaver in a position to smack something in the face with the 7 Arc Fury. You should have enough Furies in your deck to where you've drawn at least one in your first hand. If not, well then, rest in peace. So that's really your goal with AC, is to smack something with a 7 Arc Fury first turn, because the Immortal Weaver's range is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, and this is talking top of turn 1. If you're a second player, then things are a little bit different, because then you're reacting to your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For ISA, you're pretty much going to be starting Weaver and Gatecrasher Morningstar, and your goal is going to be to get your models on as many points as possible and to dump out models that then threaten your opponent.
The perfect first turn for ISA is I have Eschatonic Well and Gatecrasher, and suddenly I have 11 points of models out at the end of my first turn. Deal with it.
This is true. Eschatonic Crasher first turn ISA is gross.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then Empyrean's basically the same thing, just with Nyx instead of the Gatecrasher Morningstar. And then because Nyx doesn't get an activation token, you're a little bit more freeform. So I start 2 1-cost solos and Nyx. And then I'll activate one of the solos, have the other one in reserve, and then Nyx goes up, scores a point, and then Gate crashes. And then I've got, a couple more models out, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, usually 4 units at that point that I can activate next turn, which gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. So
that's kind of like the go-to starts in Kickstarter 2 for.
No, that's good, because I'm like missing a for lack of a better term, a structure in my brain on how to approach the game. So that was good. I appreciate that.
For sure.
And that's one of the big things too about the terrain in the game is that the skirmish board, you're only 20 inches apart from each other, right? Like
Yeah.
You kind of have to make these ways for players in their deployment zones to be not necessarily safe, but to where they don't get top of one and lose all their things.
Yeah.
And it only becomes harder in the next Kickstarter, because things have just gotten so fast. And so I had to write a whole article about, some of the crazy things that can happen in turn 1 on skirmish and how to kind of mitigate that a little bit. And
Wow.
unfortunately, most of the answers for that came down to terrain. So it's one of those,
Right.
hey, if you play on a board that is not good,
Yeah.
you're going to have a very hard time if you're up against a Talon squad.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that wave 3 gets revised quickly then.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just that things are so fast. And ISA honestly has some of the nastiest ones too, because ASA, which is a new hero soul is coming out, just changes the game in that respect. But I know
Yeah.
you're short on time. Let's just go over your favorite aspect of the game real quick, and then we'll just do one more. Hey, what's the Bokur Brawl? Where's it at? When is it? And we'll let you go.
All right, outstanding. Well, so my favorite aspect of the game, this is going to sound really silly. I kind of feel foolish saying it. I love the movement of models, the within 2 inches, the you're not focused on each individual little model moving, and I love the way the gates work. I think that adds such depth to the game and how you can play the game. I really enjoy that.
Oh, it is. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, if you start factoring in like all the little cheat movements you get out of different things, like it starts opening up into that 3D chess thing again, right?
Yeah.
And like even ladders. I don't know how often you use ladders in your meta,
A lot.
but ladders definitely can change the game.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I've never heard of a game where, hey, ladder placements are like pivotal for the board,
Yeah.
but
All of a sudden you're getting somewhere where you didn't think you were getting because I was going to go up and down the ladder and getting myself another inch or two.
yeah. I mean, Warjacks, if you have to start from that max range from the ladder and you're going as far as you can, you're getting like 2 inches every time.
Yeah.
2 inches of extra movement that
Yep.
The only infernal ruling in all of Warcaster is about ladders.
And what?
And it says you can't use the same ladder twice in one activation.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I knew that one.
And I think that's the dumbest ruling ever.
Yeah.
The amount of extra movement you get is so minimal in that situation, unless you're playing, because they mentioned like hanging vines as like a ladder equivalent. And so like if you're playing like the whole wall of a building is hanging vines, then yes, you could cheat out a lot of movement that way. But I've never seen anything more than like an 1.5 inch wide ladder.
Well, they might be future proofing. Who knows?
Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, it's got to be one of the best skirmish level games I've played, though. Quite honestly, I really do enjoy it. It's funny because I told you the club kind of quickly refocused back onto our competitive list for the War Machine tournaments, and then like last week we broke out the Warcaster to prepare for tonight and everything, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, forgot how much fun we have doing this. We got to bring this out again. And it's and then you have the normal gamer issue, right? I don't have enough time in a day for all the games I want to play, but
There's too many games out there. They're just really awesome.
Yeah, but I'm really hoping that once the world gets back to normal, and all this Kickstarter stuff is out there, that we start seeing a lot more folks play the game. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a fun game.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I know you have to get going, Seth.
Yeah, I got to get going, but I'll just I'll leave you with the with the elevator pitch. Bokur Brawl, October 22nd to the 24th. We have Warcaster, we've got Monpok, we've got a 5-person team event, we've got a Warfare Weekend qualifier, the Big Base Brawl, Brawl Machine. We even have Riot Quest tables set up as demos or just, for people who want to just kind of casually get together and play some Riot Quest. Go to the website, www.thebokurbrawl.com, and we hope to see everybody at the Brawl.
Thank you again for coming out, Seth. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. I've had so much fun. Thank you for having me. Really means a lot.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you at the Brawl.
I will see you at the Brawl. Okay, guys, be well. I'm going to sign off.
Right. And thank you everybody for listening. We hope to bring more to you soon. And I know I'm excited to do a cast once I go to Bokur Brawl and let you guys know how much fun I had there.
Adios.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This podcast is brought to you by SX Wargames. Now, if y'all enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe. Now, for more content, you can check out the Through the Void Gate blog, or join us on the SX Wargames Facebook, Discord, and YouTube. Stay safe and roll super strikes.